Welcome to another episode of the podcast. This is part 2 of a conversation I had with our good friend Counterpoints back in December of 2022. While you do not need to watch part 1 of our conversation to understand what is discussed here, we highly encourage you to do so as to get a broader understanding of where we differ and the mindset we were in when we began this conversation. In this part, we discussed the Twitter files, how the left may have gotten them wrong, what Twitter did to conservatives, and what, if anything, could be done to help alleviate the vitriol we both agree is getting out of hand. While this conversation happened before all the reporting on Twitter was made public, it is still relevant as we go in depth into social media landscape generally. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the show. Do you want to get, are you able to get spicy? Do you want to argue about the Twitter files?
Yes. As a matter of fact, I think my audience might prefer that because they've been waiting for me to fucking shit my pants over Destiny being an asshole about it.
So I'll full disclosure, I have not watched that video. I don't catch your stuff live often because I'm fairly busy.
I wasn't even live for it because basically it was 5 minutes after my job. So I was like, I'm just going to jump on Discord and argue. The first one was a show, but I don't feel like I got like people were like, all right, that's pretty bad faith. And I don't feel like we're getting very far. So people weren't as upset with the first one. People are pretty upset with the second one, but we'll get into it.
Okay. So it is from the conversations that we've had on Twitter, which I'm no longer using. Everybody, I'm done. I will only use it for research purposes at this point, because of what Elon did to his former employee rather. But
the one that he basically said like, oh, this is a pedo or whatever.
Yep. And and I'm gonna say it, and I probably shouldn't, but I'm going to. I don't necessarily think that he's actually doing anything to take that issue on, and I think he's being propped up with the hopes of him actually doing it because people know they can butter him up. So I'll say that as well.
Wait, explain that because I didn't track. What do you think Elon is?
So there is this claim among conservatives right now. It's where that Jordan Peterson thing came in, where he's like, you can't find child exploitation on Twitter anymore, and everybody dunked on him because that's a weird thing to say. There is a single person. Yeah.
How do you know, bro?
How do you know? Yeah. It was an easy thing. I get it. But the thing is that lefties don't know what's going on in here. And what's going on is that there is a single woman that is going around telling everybody that she knows what kind of hashtags are being used to share this stuff around, and people link up. And Twitter's telling her that they're going after these people and hiring people in different countries to actually like go after it in like South America and like Indonesia and the Philippines, and they're actually tackling it. And I'm like, okay, where's the proof of that? And so they're like, I'm going to release the proof through a journalist I can trust. And the journalist is a Elon Musk stan blog. So I'm like, this is sussy. And then everybody's calling me a PDF because I'm asking for proof. And they think by that, I mean, actual hashtags to find and stuff like that. No, I just want I want more than numbers on a graph that I don't know where it came from. Like, you're not giving any underlining information here, so how can I trust this? But people thinking that Elon's tackling this stuff, and I think that the reason they think that is because the people that want him to are saying that he is now, so he actually will, because he's an egoist, and so if you butter him up, he's going to do what you want.
Interesting. So probably the most shady thing that I think has happened recently is basically like he's claimed that like an Antifa person like went and doxed his kid and came after his kid or whatever, which like dude if that happens, like I'll do worse than fucking dox you, right? Like I will.
I get it. It's horrible what happened, and it to be charitable,
if it happened the way that it said it would happen, right?
And if we're going to steel man out anything, then yes, he's got every right to be pissed, and I understand why where he's coming from. I just don't believe it.
Right. And then that's what I was going to say. And then what happened was apparently a bunch of journalists, because I think he's really disliked this profile for a while, the one that like tracks his private jet.
He offered him $50,000 to take it down. Yep.
Right. So basically what I'm kind of assuming is this thing either happened or didn't happen. The journalists were retweeting the fucking either like the Elon jet or some like location shit, and they were like, "Oh, this stalker went after Elon's kid or some shit." And then he talked about it. He used it as an excuse to delete those journalist profiles, or not delete, but ban. And then now he's like, "Well, when can they come back?" mob.
Yeah.
And so for me, like, if it really is like, hey, a bunch of journalists are like being dicks and retweeting your fucking space so like psychos can go after your fucking kid, I don't give a shit. But I don't think like enough journalists are that big of fucking sociopaths that they would want to fucking like kill a kid in order to go after Elon. That's fucking assuming a lot.
So what
yeah.
did happen, what we can say happened, is that at least two of them basically tweeted out, hey, Elon Musk banned Elon Jet for the new policy before the policy was implemented, though, by the way. So there was about a 8 to 12 hour lag between the policy becoming public and the ban happening, which if you're going to do these things, that's not the way to do it. It makes it look, even if it's
first.
Yeah, policy always first, because they give people the chance to rectify the situation, and it doesn't look like you're actually fishing for things to justify a ban, which is what it looks like. Post hoc justification for it, right? And so what happened was,
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just finish real quick. So what happened was at least two of the journalists said, "Hey, Elon Musk banned this person. They're now tweeting, or they're now on Instagram or Mastodon." So
he was like, "You're encouraging my doxing."
He's claimed that. However, there is a video, I can link it into your chat because I managed to grab it, where Elon Musk is asked, hey, what does doxing actually entail? Can this still exist if it's like a day delay? Like all these things. And Elon Musk is like, no. And then instead of answering more questions, he just got mad and left the chat. And then after about 30 minutes of him leaving that chat, 30 minutes to an hour, that chat mysteriously stopped working.
Yeah, dude. And so, okay, so let me say this is where Destiny can piss me off with this shit. Like he really did. And it's okay. Like I get it. I gotta be the fucking. I'm like the only conservative left on fucking Twitch and YouTube. So basically, like, I'm the only person who's around for the fucking punching bag anyways. Like either the people are so fucking big that they like they don't need to come on and debate anymore, right? Like fucking Sargon or Lauren or whatever. Or they're fucking schizoids who get fucking banned almost instantaneously. So I get it. Like I'm the only fucking competition in town. Got it. All right, understood. But I did feel like I got beat up pretty fucking bad because basically the perspective that he assigned to me was conservatives are being suppressed just for this being like a very important fucking caveat, only for being conservative. Okay, I don't think I've ever said that. I don't think there's fucking any evidence that I've said that. Like somebody, Abaddon 666 said that I said that in the beginning of the debate, which I asked him to link, and I'll still ask him. I don't know if he's here, but I'll ask him to fucking DM me or link me the clip where it says like, yeah, it's just because they're conservative. Like, I don't believe that shit for a fucking second, but we'll see. And then the number two perspective was that, like, there has to be something new and interesting in the Twitter files themselves. It can't be new or interesting that this entire dynamic is disrupted. And I don't think I've tweeted anything to that effect, but that was like the argument that Destiny like forced me into. But that's my problem, is I don't think I've ever made those arguments. And if anything, the arguments that I've made is that liberals pretending that the Twitter files in general is not a big deal. I think that's cope. Like, you can say that it's slanted to the right. You can say that it's not a full disclosure. You can say that we already knew that 3-letter agencies were interacting with social media sites, so this is nothing new. You can say that, you can say all that shit. But just because it's not new doesn't mean it's not important. And then as a part of the broader discourse, which I know I'm not supposed to leave the bubble of like the Twitter files themselves, but the complaint from conservatives has been that basically like they get suppressed for engaging in topics that are covered by the First Amendment but not covered by terms of service. As a result, the platforms disproportionately discriminate against conservatives, and they've been shadow banned as a result. And that is all provable through the Twitter files. And then I get this weird argument from progressives. I'll shut up in a second. I know I've been talking a lot. But I get this weird argument from progressives where they're like, well, that was already in the terms of service, so you already knew that. Feels a little weak to me.
All right, so here's where I'm with it, and I know that you wanted to argue with me about this because of our tweets back and forth. So where I'm at with it is that, yes, Twitter talked out both sides of his mouth. It said, we define shadow banning as making it impossible to find someone's tweets. However, we do content moderation and content shape and conversation shaping to protect people and make sure that bad faith actors aren't getting purposely pushed to the top of the newsfeed. One, we know that's kind of bullshit. They're getting pushed to the top of the newsfeed because of how the algorithms work. But two, that's what everybody said shadow banning was. So they were trying to have their cake and eat it too. I will give 100% that is what the Twitter files prove. What the Twitter files also prove, though, is that they did everything that they thought was right, how to actually manage and thread this needle. So I don't know about you, but I have led political debate communities and forums and under various different methods online for like 15 years in one form or another. I've been moderator, I've been an admin, I've owned groups. Like, what ultimately happens is that you get a group of like 10 people or so that are kind of on the same page with how they want the group to go. They write a set of rules, and then somebody, a jackass usually, goes up to the line of where that rule is and constantly says, you can't ban me. You can't do it. I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you. And eventually you're like, you're violating the spirit of the rule. How are we going to change the rule so that we can get people like you off our fucking backs and actually do debate?
Rule creep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that is what Twitter was going through. And that is why Libs of TikTok was not outright banned, despite that should have been the policy, because she was not Rychek, is that how you pronounce her last name?
Yeah, she wasn't technically violating this, that, the other thing.
And then they came up with like, well, if your account is going up to the line constantly and harassment comes as a result of your account doing these things, then we're going to do an account level ban, because all the stuff that you're doing is going up to the line, and as a result, all the stuff ends up making you cross that line.
Yeah.
At the same time, they did that. And then they said, you have to consult us before banning her, because we have to make sure that it is being handled in a way that won't get us all. So they had moderators and then admins, and the admins are the ones that had to prove it. Every group that I've ever moderated or been an admin of does this. Every single one. Welcome to content moderation. It has to happen.
No, and this is all. I agree with everything that you've just said, and not only that, I think it's reasonable, particularly from a progressive standpoint. And so what I mean by that is, there's a balance in the American national discourse between basically the protection of vulnerable groups and free speech, right? Like the ability to express your ideas. I also believe that like a majority of these controversial ideas, like fascism, Christian nationalism, all that kind of stuff, on a majority of these platforms, you can talk about them from a bird's eye view, where you're like, hey, this is a description of Christian nationalism. This is a description of fascism. This is a description of this idea, this framework, that framework, blah, blah, blah. I think you can have like a really bird's eye perspective. But I think what ends up happening is when you're anti-progressive and you don't just describe your ideology, you believe in it. And as a result, you start fucking shitting on progressives, fighting progressives, getting into beefs, trying to, calling people the F slur, or, whatever, all that kind of shit. That's where like you become at risk. So then it becomes this question about like the national discourse, where it's like, this, to me, this is a third of the country. This is like MAGA, Christian nationalist, Christian conservative overlap, borderline authoritarian, theocrats who have
Lolberts that say, you can't tell me what to do.
So basically, like, so the question is like, how do you incorporate those people into the discussion where they're not getting disproportionately but where also they have like this weird like childish attitude where they're always trying to fuck with the rules, right? And so I can agree that like Twitter did the best based off of their moral value set. I can also say that as a right winger, I do prefer fucking Musk's like I don't like his arbitrary bans. I think that's like beyond. Like, I think all of the malfeasance that you can accuse original Twitter of, Elon Musk in a month, he did it, and he's done worse.
Yes.
So now it's an even more arbitrary system where if you criticize Musk too much, if you dunk on him, meme on him, make fun of him, do this random shit, whatever, he'll just ban you arbitrarily.
He banned the account.
He's made it a wilder place.
He banned the account that posted the video of him being booed in San Francisco.
Right.
This is not a man that should be in charge of social media. His ego is too fragile.
Well, and then my counterpoint, finger guns. So Vlad Kababer says you're a theocrat if you want pedophilia to be illegal these days. I'm against pedophilia, and I'm actually pretty vociferous in my anti-pedophilia rhetoric. I'm not a theocrat, so
and you're simply wrong. Like I know where that's going, and I don't want to engage with
Gays
it.
Gays are groomers, trans are groomers. Yeah. All right. So, anyways, the point being, I feel like from a progressive standpoint, they did the best they could. Also, I think that like incorporating with like the letter agencies, they probably did what they were expected to do. But I still think that.
So here's the thing with the letter agencies. I think that's something we should actually discuss because I don't want it to be brushed aside.
Sure.
What The Intercept showed versus what Tech Dirt, I think that's the name of the blog that goes in deep dives into like policies and stuff, that all things tech, is that what it was that the 3-letter agencies were basically going to social media in general and like trying to share information with them so they would be aware of what's going on and didn't be like, you better do this or we're going to come after you. It was more like, you said that you want to tackle this stuff. How is the best way that we can have this public-private partnership in order for you to do what you want to do and us still follow the laws and all that stuff so that everybody can be safe? Like, that is essentially what it was going down. And I understand why people are like, oh my God, this is like the agency of the Ministry of Truth and all this stuff. But to me, it's all fear-mongering with that. Because if you look at the actual policies that were picked and like the public comments that were being made about these things and that, it wasn't really all that. It really wasn't. And that could be my bias from being an intelligence analyst. Like, I don't know.
No. I actually, this is another thing too, where my description, this is the weirdest fucking thing. So my description of like Trump being an asshole was like almost necessary for me to say that the Hunter Biden story was suppressed by intelligence agencies in cahoots with like this will probably be where we get edgy and fighty.
Okay.
Basically like my entire thesis of basically like 3-letter agencies kind of manipulating the Hunter Biden story in order to push it so Biden was more likely to win is completely reliant on the fact that like Trump is fucking son of a bitch. Hold on, we'll get there. We can go stepstone if we need to go stepstone. But it's basically completely reliant on Trump being a fucking asshole, his supporters being liars, them trying to fucking like coup the state or whatever, or basically not conceding that the election was properly won. Like all that kind of stuff. Because the truth is that I think that a lot of intel guys are not like evil Machiavellian fucking mustache twirling dickheads who just want to control society. I think they're generally people who believe in the Republic and they want the Republic to do well. And when you have an authoritarian who's basically, being a dick, what are you going to do? Are you just going to stand by and just say, not my fucking job? I don't think so. So anyways, we can get into the details for that. But the point being like, I think if you were progressive and you care about trans folk and gay folk and black folk and all that kind of shit, the way that Twitter used to be moderated, despite its progressive sympathies or whatever, is the way that you would do it, and I don't really question that. The problem is, I'm not a progressive.
I get it.
I'm a liberal. Like I want to have fucked up, weird, shitty conversations. And I don't want like random dickheads to be deciding what I can talk about or how I want to talk about it. Now, that being said, there's reasonable limits. Sorry, I'm circling because I'm looking for the point, but I think that's the closest I'm going to get to it.
So what I think this boils down to is where we consider to draw the line of harassment, because I think you consider harassment to be where the line is, right? So for me,
like once you start individually fucking threatening people, absolutely, yeah.
Right. So for me, what that means is that if you make it to where it has to be an individual and not groups or implications, then you get libs of TikTok going around and calling everyone groomers and then pointing out this site is in charge of grooming kids and turning them trans. What are you going to do about it? That is almost word for word something that she said. And what happened? Bomb threats, fire bombings. That bomb threats happened at the hospital. The donut shop that recently hosted a drag show got firebombed afterwards. They're still looking into the one that happened where people went around and shot out the transformers to cut power to the entire county. to
Right.
right when it was supposed to be going off. We're really going to not think that that was part of like a terrorist attack against these people. Let's be real. Okay. And that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
And so, but the way Twitter went about it, she didn't get banned. So I don't understand how somebody on the right is going to be like, well, whatever, like she got banned and, we're all being, when that is clearly directed harassment. It's just not being literal directed harassment. It's not like go to XYZ at now time and go f them up.
And so what I would say is not the fear, but so I think there has to be, and I think that's where everybody's like so sensitive because they're, basically I even start suggesting this shit and people jump down my throat. I think there has to be a way for Christian conservatives and Christian nationalists to basically articulate their worldview. And I get that, like, it's unpalatable, it's homophobic, transphobic, whatever. I get it.
Stop calling for violence. It's that simple. Stop insinuating that somebody is evil. It's that simple. You can say, hey, this is bad for people, but they're not groomers. Like, if you're going to call them groomers, and we have groomer as this like overarching narrative where you're basically
blame James Lindsay for that
soul of the child, that you're basically turning them away from God and preventing them from going to heaven. That is what the idea of groomer means here. Where are
they believe that though?
They can believe that, but stop saying it like that. Say it in other ways, because you are inherently calling for violence when you do these things.
Okay, so let's describe the worldview without defending it. Okay, so I'm not defending the worldview. I want to describe it. So basically, in this situation, because I kind of want to explain it for the people who don't get it. Basically, the philosophy, this is how I understand groomer rhetoric, okay, is that, and it's so simple, it's fucking stupid, all right, is that gay people and trans people, there's nothing genetic or endocrinological going on, it's all social. And basically what's going on is all these people have been abused as children, or they were like socialized weird or whatever. And as a result of their weird socialization, they're now gay or trans, right?
Just to piggyback off that, there's also the idea that they're literally possessed by demons, and that's a huge part of it as well. Hence the Satan panic.
Well, there's a bigger thing there, but yeah, let's focus on this. The logic of the worldview first, and then we'll get into that. So basically, the follow up to that is that being homosexual, you cannot, right? Like you cannot have kids unless you're doing either adoption or IVF or other unnatural means, right? According to God's word, where God just wants men and women to be together. He doesn't want the gays to be together, right? Then trans folk, same thing, because through the process of becoming trans, there is a strong chance that unless you freeze your sperm or eggs, you will basically, be infertile or whatever, right? That I'm not saying that's totally true. I'm just saying that's the logic.
It's mostly.
So as a result, the reason why gay and trans people are insistent on spending time with children, either through trans shows or drag shows or whatever the or like LGBTQ friendly family events and all that kind of stuff, is because they're looking for recruits. They're looking for new people to abuse. That way they can recruit them into the homosexual cult, get them away from God, and as a result, damn these children to hell.
Yep.
Because they would not have been gay and they would not have been trans if it was not for the intervention of gay and trans folk, right?
That's their logic.
That is their logic. So I'm not saying this is correct, but I'm saying if you believe this, it is a moral fucking like imperative that you save the souls of fucking innocent children, fucking blah blah blah. And so this is where, it gets fucking dicey for me, because how do you say, like, hey, I literally think you're going to fucking hell, and on top of that you're abusing children, and I don't believe that you're gay or trans? How do you say that on modern social media while keeping your account? I don't know if you can.
I mean, you can on Twitter now, because Elon Musk doesn't like trans people either.
You can't. Well, see, and that's, dude, no, you just nailed the fuck out of it.
I know.
And then that was the thing where it's like, we could have had like a sensible conversation, which like you and I, like we're both fucking autists and geniuses. We could have figured out the exact way where a Christian nationalist or a Christian conservative or a Christian theocrat could have said this without being like cruel. Well, they'd probably still be cruel and malicious, right?
It's hard to say that you're going to hell and not be cruel. I mean, that's just the way it is.
It's tough. Yeah, it's hard to fucking say that shit. But basically, what I would say is that this is representative of like 30% of the country. I just think that's about right. If you're
maybe.
Okay, maybe half the okay, so a third are Republicans, right? A third are neutral, and a third are Democrats, and half of Republicans are Trump cultists. So it would be like
that's 15%. That's what I was going to say. Probably 20%. We can split the difference and say 20. It's still sizable. Okay. I don't know if I'd say 30%. Yeah, it's sizable,
dude. But it's 1 in 5 of the fucking country.
It's a big problem.
Yeah. So what's happened is because these people were excluded from the conversation, they've frankly, I think, thrown shit fits over it. And liberals, like myself, basically made the argument, hey, you're excluding these people from the conversation. As a result of that, they're siloing, they're getting more radicalized due to their lack of exposure to, other ideas besides their own. They're becoming dickheads. And then the more that you ban these people, basically the more radical they get. And we were told, oh, you're fucking cringe for believing in the marketplace of ideas. Go fuck yourself, you stupid fucking bloodcock. Go ahead, sorry.
There's there's truth to it, but I think that the siloing was happening anyways. So I don't think I don't think it was because people were being banned. I don't think that actually increased anything. I think that actually helped tamp it down a bit, honestly, because it shows the people that Overton window, there's certain ideas that we don't tolerate in polite society, and a lot of people want to be accepted. So if they get banned, some will be like, oh no, I fucked up, let me back in. But some people will go, but those people that are going to go probably like going anyways. It's social media itself that encourages the siloing. Facebook.
But bro, you are like on the cusp of fucking saying my exact fear though. So basically though, with these people, they silo, right? Probably because of the nature of social media. There's more platforms coming online all the time. There's a bunch of alternatives that have been launched to Twitter. They've all sucked so far, but there's a bunch of things.
Mastodon's all right.
Well, people have said that. Lefties have said that. So, and I think there's enough of an exodus that enough people will probably go over there that you can have a few decent conversations, right? Like it's not gonna be like classic Twitter or whatever where you're fighting with everybody all the fucking time. But you could probably have a decent conversation with other people for the exit. Yeah, but I'm probably never leaving Twitter because this is like shitpost heaven now, right?
For sure.
The people that I fight or whatever, I'm gonna meme on them, but like righties, I'll meme on them, but I don't think I'll ever meme on them so hard that I'll actually get banned. Because if they banned me for like the way that I fucking shit talk them, they'd just be like the most fucking fragile vaginas on the fucking planet. Because it's really like it's really like in Tim Pool or whatever. Like he just like I don't know, that dude pisses me off. But anyways, so what's happened though, which is I think this is what's interesting about the fucking Twitter files, is that the right wing felt so persecuted that they got a sympathetic right-winger to spend $44 billion to buy one of the most like huge fucking social media platforms. And as a result of that, you now basically have fucking right-wing free fire zones. It's fucking bananas. So this whole deplatforming fucking thing, it's backfired in the most up way possible.
I think it's worse than that. I don't think it's the deplatforming that happened. I think this is all driven by ego, and I really think it's because Elon Musk got dunked on one too many times on Twitter because it was starting because the facade of his marketing and the idea of him being Tony Stark was starting to ebb away, and he wanted to shit on trans people. And the reason he wants to shit on trans people is because Rhymes cheated on him with Manning, and he just can't stand that. And his daughter also disowned him because she's trans and does not like him because of his trans views. So that is why he bought it, because he wanted the Babylon Bee to come back and make that same shitty trans joke over and over and over again to make him feel a little better inside.
Okay, so but like, would we have avoided actually this is really interesting because for me, I feel like this calamity could have been avoided if we had figured out some way to bring the Overton window back in instead of going for virality and infamy and all that kind of stuff. I feel like we probably could have struck a balance.
Yep.
It sounds like from you that you don't think that balance would have been struck. It just would have happened.
Yeah,
Like
I don't.
fucking right wingers would have just gotten fucking ass mad anyways.
Yeah, I think they would have gotten ass mad anyways, and I honestly
So
think that
even if they were able to say like, hey, I think trans people don't, aren't exist. I think they're like the victims of abuse, and they're trying to indoctrinate kids into like new generations of fucking trans people. Even if they could have that conversation and not get banned, if they weren't allowed to use the T slur, it still would have come to this.
I think it would have still come to this, and not only do I think it would have come to this, I think no. The reason I say this is because, and this is important, and I'm gonna
That's an interesting point.
hammer this on every single time. There is a ton of manufacturing consent going around on social media 24/7. Governments around the world are playing into and I'm not even talking about Russia, I'm talking about in general, are playing into the fact that the United States has one of the most free speech oriented societies in the fucking world, and it's easy I think
exploit. I think TikTok is a fucking Chinese psyop, like for sure.
TikTok, like, Instagram, it's happening everywhere. Facebook, I've literally caught people changing the profiles mid argument with me to try to correct a mistake about their profile that I pointed out. One of these incidents happened from a guy that claimed that they went to the Naval Academy in Annapolis and said that they studied weapons systems, and that's what their degree was in. And I pointed out that is not an actual degree you get from the Naval War College. You get real degrees like in engineering, and the guy blocked me. He changed his profile and then blocked me. Like, that is the kind of stuff that we're dealing with here. Okay. So until we get that problem under control, all the stuff that we're talking about doesn't fucking matter, because everybody's going to be pushed. What problem? The problem is that we do not know if the scale of social media is untenable, and because of that untenable scale, you have to believe that everybody is being at least somewhat genuine in their pursuits and their comments. And if there are a ton of disingenuous actors playing on people's fears and pushing the Overton window one way or the other, it is actually shaping the conversation and manufacturing consent. So we have to get that under control. The only way that I can think of doing that is having I was just about to get there. The only way I can think of us actually doing anything about this is either to governmentally silo social media away from other countries, which I don't think is the right way to do about it. I think is having a consortium of anything that we have as social media and requiring government IDs in order to access the internet.
Yeah, so that's like obviously from a libertarian standpoint, like
it is never going to work. No. It's never going to work from a Christian nationalist either, because that's the mark of the beast. Yada yada yada. I get it, but we have to deal with the fact that there are people that are creating thousands of accounts to push narratives that end up shaping how we all talk about situations, and it's always going to shape it in a more worse manner. People are literally talking about being open Nazis now. That did not happen 10, 15 years ago. That started to happen because of all this stuff. That started to happen because of metastasizing and people being able to be edgy and people doing all this stuff because if you got banned on one account, you just bring up another one and it's all good and good.
Interesting. I don't think I necessarily agree. The reason why is because like this gets to the exact core of the argument. I fucking love this. Can I point out for the fucking 50 god fucking chat? Let me check on them right now. 45 people in fucking 45 people on YouTube, 23 people on fucking Twitch. Thank you for being here, by the way. But can I point out to you that we are having the same conversation that I could have had with Destiny if I wasn't shoehorned into the fucking perspective that I had to fucking I had to fit all of my perspectives into an exact quote from the Twitter files. Like I have to find it. And not only does it have to be new, meaning that it's not something that we've known in the past half decade, it has to be interesting, not in general, but interesting specifically to Destiny. Can you just understand like how fucking shitty of a goddamn frame that is? And on top of that, like I'll look at a Batten 666's fucking clip where allegedly I say the sole reason why people are banned off of social media is because they're conservative, which I don't believe exists. But if it does exist, I'll eat crow. I'll fucking happily say, hey, that was a stupid fucking point. It was cringe to say out loud. I don't know why I said it. You know, I've been taking fucking benzodiazepines or whatever the fuck people take these days in order to say racist shit on the internet, and that's why I said something stupid. Okay, that fucking. But I don't think that clip exists. So all right, I'll get off my fucking high horse. But my point is that like we're actually getting to the crux of the conversation, and because you're not a fucking, and I think you have an IQ above like I don't know average, right?
I have no idea.
Okay, I think you're above average. You know, you could be, you know, average. If average is 100, you're at least 102. Okay. So the point being that basically we're now getting to the crux of the argument, which is you think that these nefarious ideas are metastasizing because they're allowed to grow in the open, and on top of that, people are manipulating it. But what I'm kind of instinctively saying, based off of like the philosophy of our society, is that like that is free speech. Okay, that is a open and free society. Like people being able to manipulate other people with like disinformation and politics and this, that, the other, and election misinformation and COVID misinformation and all that kind of stuff. That fight is part of being in a free society. And you've brought up something that would be like wildly authoritarian, despite falling in line with like a progressive mindset.
So let me clarify some points, because I'm not for I'm not saying that this is metastasizing because it's being allowed to be out in the open. I think it's metastasizing because there isn't any actual social pushback for the people that are engaging in it, because there isn't any reputation tracking that happens online. So if you are a dickhead and you want to be a troll, you can go on and be a troll anywhere. No one can find where you are at. You have the anonymity of the internet. Even though the internet lives forever, they don't know it's you. So that breaks the kind of core psychological framework, sociological framework that people actually exist in, that kept societies kind of functioning in general. If you said some messed up shit back in the day and it really pissed everybody off, they would literally kick you out of the city, and you would have to go live on an island. Okay. I'm not saying that that's what we should do, but I'm saying that there are different social ramifications that social media breaks. That's one part of it. The other part of it is not that people shouldn't be able to have these conversations openly. I'm okay with them having it openly. The anonymity makes that a problem. But on top of that, there are nefarious actors coming through and actually pushing people to go more extreme because it benefits them. And since there isn't any way to understand that there is a one-to-one correlation for every account that exists that actually represents a person, and we're hardwired to see anything that we read to be able to, because it's visual, and it's read, so we process it in the language part of our brain more so than like visual cues and social dynamics, we instantly take it as more being true. And so it is actually the right position for everybody online to take somebody at the word that they're using, and that you have to believe them. And so since they're not being genuine and you can't track their social representation, and they're on top of that building thousands of accounts to do this, it's easier to push them in an extreme direction. And that's part of the social dynamics. So if you have 30 people saying one thing, there's an actual psychological experiment. So you get like 5 people in a room and everybody says something wrong, and you know that that's wrong. You're more likely to speak up and say, hey, that's wrong. It's actually this. Once you get to 15 to 20, you start getting scared that you don't want to speak up because you don't want to rock boats. Once it's 30 plus, you actually take on that position because you are instinctively convinced that you are incorrect. Online social media exacerbates that problem to infinity.
Okay, and I understand that stuff. But this is like this is exactly like the conservative fear that the cure is worse than the disease. Like that's actually exactly what's going on. Yeah. So for instance, like the eliminating online anonymity, while I think it would solve a lot of the social ills, you're just saying for social media.
No, so I'm not saying eliminating anonymity. Okay, I'm Cypher. My real name is Anthony. I don't care that people know who I am. I understand there are legitimate reasons for people to have some sort of anonymity. But you know that I am when I engage on social media and I say this is my account, you know that I exist as a person. Mm-hmm. Not everybody has that. I'm saying that you have to have some sort of system. There should be some sort of system in place that you know that person at least is a real person. Not somebody playing a character or controlling thousands of accounts and manipulating you. So I'm okay with pseudo anonymity or actual anonymity, but we have, again, the thousands upon thousands of accounts going around and manufacturing consent, which is the primary problem.
Yeah, and this has become more, not less opaque, but more opaque with Elon Musk taking it over, which I think that's like that's actually my frustration. Is so all the problems that I feel like are brought up by the Twitter files are legitimate, which is like people are being shadow banned, perhaps properly, right, for their violations of TOS or flirtations of TOS. But they're being their program is they made their niche definition of shadow banning, but they're being throttled, so their visibility is throttling, and they can't see whether or not they're being throttled. And basically, they on some level they suspect that their popularity is being modified by the moderators, but they don't know whether or not they're being throttled. So that's a transparency issue that the company probably doesn't want to fix, because if you knew that you were being throttled, you would be less likely to participate in that system versus perhaps a system that throttles you less.
Yep, the incentives are perverse too.
Right. And then also when it comes to the 3-letter agencies, I understand you say that the Intercept had like they released documents or relationships or whatever that showed that like 99% of what's going on is pretty above board. It's what you would suspect.
The Intercept
like,
did not. Just to be clarification, the Intercept tried to make it look like a bigger deal than it was. It was the blog Tech Dirt that went through and actually like, this is all the pontification that they're saying. Here's what actually happened. So you have to read both in tandem to understand it. I just want to make sure to.
Well, and by the way, like one of the things that I think people assumed that I had from my conversation with Destiny or whatever is I thought there was like no reason why 3-letter agencies should ever interface with social fucking media, which was like a presumption on their fucking end. Like I understand intelligence, I understand like counterterrorism, I understand open source investigation, I understand all this shit. So like there are legitimate reasons for 3-letter agencies to be interacting with social media, but then the question becomes like an issue of transparency. Like, do we have meeting notes? Do we see these people's social media, or do we see these people's communications? Do they have backdoor ways to communicate with each other? Are they suppressing anybody's speech? All that kind of stuff. And by the way, all of this at this point in time, based off of the Twitter files, could still be above board. And I think the Twitter files and Elon Musk's purchase of the program would still drag into very clear focus that we need a better, more transparent way to communicate online. And so that's where I'm again, like I'm just gonna fucking hammer this because I'm again fucking annoyed. There were 2 conversations. Maybe we should avoid Hunter Biden because I feel like we would jump into a wormhole and be here for the rest of the night. We can do it another night though.
Yeah, we can do it another night. I like these conversations; they're great, and I think more people need to have them. So
okay, perfect. Talking specifically about the Twitter files. So I want to break this down because like I literally want to post the conversation that I had with Destiny about the Twitter files, post the conversation that I had with Destiny, and then I want to post this conversation immediately after it, and I want to post my fucking manifesto. And I want to say, like, if 2 people, if 2 relatives, and like, by the way, like, I understand, like, this isn't going to go viral, like me calling Sherry, right? Like I literally, I use the hard C word like 12 fucking times in that conversation, and I understand,
I'll have to
like, people
bleep
got
this when I do it.
yeah. So basically, like what I'm trying to say there is that like I understand that these conversations aren't as like wildly entertaining, but we're actually getting to the crux of each other's perspectives and why we think each other are wrong. So for instance, like I don't like the social media solution that fucking Cypher has, but I'm not like indicting him as a fucking person and calling him a piece of shit for considering it. And also I'm recognizing that the problems that he's describing are real. I'm not saying he's a fucking delusional schizophrenic who's just making shit up on the internet and he's a fucking piece of shit for even thinking about it. So anyways, just to point out the qualitative differences in the conversation. Anyways, no, I appreciate our forms of autism synchronizing. So yeah. So basically, when it comes to Twitter files in general, the reason why I was so frustrated is because with the previous conversations that I had was because I was shoehorned into the 2 phrases new and interesting. Okay, so new. We already knew that 3-letter agencies were organized or were dealing with social media companies. We also already knew that Twitter was throttling shit. As a matter of fact, that was the chief complaint. That's what fucking Republicans have been complaining about the entire time. So we suspected that they were throttling it. And as a matter of fact, their terms of service said it. And then they have this fucking cope where they're using shadow ban in like a niche way that maybe like one person meant 15 years ago, but nobody is talking about now. So that was all that just seemed like crazy fucking cope to me. for it to be like it has to be new. That was such like
Yeah.
a weird and arbitrary fucking thing that Destiny fucking foisted upon me. And then interesting. It's interesting to me.
Oh no.
It's interesting to like shitloads of other fucking people. Like just because it's not interesting to you as the world's biggest fucking debate bro doesn't mean that it's not interesting to other people. So that's another weird arbitrary line. Finally, if I ever said that conservatives online were being banned for the sole crime of being conservative, I would like to amend my statement and apologize for being inaccurate. I think it's because they're being dickbags about interesting subjects that conservatives they love being dickbags about because they have a moral system that they think they're right on. I'll stop ranting in a second, I promise. And then when it actually, so let's leave Hunter Biden for next time.
Yeah,
but the point is that like we've had more productivity along lines that like I wanted to talk about in the past fucking 20 minutes than we were able to achieve in a whole fucking hour with Destiny. So that's not to like say that he's not like intelligent or not rhetorically gifted. That's just to point out that like the conversation was doomed to fail from the get-go because there was no charity and there was no presumption that the other person had something of value to say in the conversation. So basically, love you, Destiny, but you can eat a dick, metaphorically.
Destiny,
no homophobia.
I still owe you a debate we couldn't coordinate a while ago, so we should have that too.
Based. Yeah. So, what else okay, so we were talking about the Twitter files. We were talking about like amending the situation or whatever. I basically said that I'm not really comfortable. Like you were saying, don't eliminate straight anonymity, but just try to come up with some system where there's like ID or social consequence for the way that you behave.
Well,
I understand that.
I won't even necessarily go that far. If you know that everybody to get onto the internet or onto social media has to sign in with like an actual person, I think that tamps down the stuff because it makes it impossible to create multiple accounts.
All right. Anyway, sorry. Let's wrap up the conversation, so to speak.
Yeah.
So for instance, is there anything? I'm sure we could dig into like other nuances of it, but is there anything that you think we're missing from like either the Twitter files or the developments or social media or something like that that basically like conservatives have gotten wrong or I've gotten wrong?
I think conservatives have gotten wrong in general about the magnitude of what the Twitter files say. Because what I think the Twitter files are actually doing is just trying to placate everything that conservatives thought was right and gin it up for effect. So, for example, in the first release of the Twitter file, Matt Taibbi said that there is no indication that the government was involved in the Hunter Biden story. And that was the problem. Later on, in like Twitter file 4, maybe 5, I don't know, I've lost track. He basically says, oh, they were involved. Well, which is it, Matt Taibbi? Like, were they involved or were they not? Is it because did Elon Musk tell you that you had to say they're involved for something? Are you noticing you're not getting paid as much through your Substack as being the liberal thorn and leftist side attacking us from the left? Is that what's going on? Why did you change? So I think there's a lot of narrative building here, and I think that narrative building needs to be called out by more reasonable conservatives that see it for what it is, which is basically trying to shit on everybody that was there at the time, so Elon Musk seems like a better person, as well as confirmation bias, because there's not a lot of meat to the bones. They started off with their least important bits of it to try to link it to the Hunter Biden story, because that's what conservatives really wanted. But it was kind of a bust, at least to me and a lot of other people. And then they, Twitter file 3 or 4 is when they're like, this is when the 3-letter agencies did things. I'm like, that's what you should have led with, because that's actually meat on the bones. And even the meat there is a little fatty. It's not that great.
Okay. Well, then that's interesting that it's come out in 4. And that was one of the frustrations in that conversation. So I thought that Destiny had said that basically there was like a new, more comprehensive dump, and as a result, I didn't know what I was talking about. And so I just like took that on face value. I was just like, okay, I guess, there's more shit that came out. And I noticed how fucking slanted it was. So I didn't want to pretend that I didn't notice how fucking slanted it was. Obviously, it was slanted as fuck. So that's kind of where my own charitability stings me in the ass, where I'm like, well, yeah, no, the right wingers could totally, like, I believe that like political suppression of right wingers is fucking real, but I also know or can see that this is like slanted propaganda.
Yeah,
so
it's
it's frustrating.
Propaganda.
Yeah,
It really
it's frustrating when charitability is used against you, which is but whatever. It's just the nature of the space we live in.
True.
Yeah. So I would say let's do a part 2. I'm kind of trying to get away from one-on-ones because I know that I'm going to be busy as with Warhammer 40K content. I
Sure.
also know that I'm going to be busy with trying to launch the Heated Hippie. So basically the spiritual successor
Nice.
to the Hippie Dippy. And so basically, like, I know I'm fucked, but at the same time,
Right.
I do feel like this conversation had like a really good cadence where we were actually able to get into the meat of what I wanted to get into with other people. So basically, the fact that I was able to articulate my views while still having pushback was fun for me.
No, yeah, I love these conversations. If you wanted to do like a 2v2 or even like somebody else moderate your Heated Hippie and you wanted to cover some of that stuff,
participate
I'm
for
down.
once.
I'm down for sure. I just let
we're
me know
definitely
a week or
looking
two
up
ahead
for
of time.
backup moderators. So because like obviously like I do I like fighting too, like obviously like I love the content, I love the space, I love all that kind of stuff, but I do love screaming at people every now and then. So
It's fun.
Anything do you want to shout anything out, and do you have any saved rounds before we kind of wrap it up?
No, I'm good as far as the Twitter files are. I think we came to an understanding. Just to in case it wasn't clear to the audience, I do understand your concern about like no anonymity on the internet or people not being able to have a free open dialogue, and that can metastasize in different ways. Those are legitimate concerns. There should not be just brushed aside as being like you're stupid or whatever. Just so in case nobody was aware of that, that's my actual position. I just do believe that we have to synthesize both of these and come up with a solution that basically fixes all the problems that we both recognize exist. And as shitty as it is, it's probably going to have to be government regulation. I don't think the platforms are going to regulate themselves, or we're going to end up going to a federated model where everybody just silos, and that's how we end up getting worse off.
Which is a horrific fucking it's a horrific potential outcome. Yeah, that is going to be terrible. Yeah,
all right, brother.